Hello everyone. Up for sale today is an Ensoniq EPS keyboard, which I have actually modified with a Gotek keyboard or Gotek USB floppy drive. This floppy drive has the HxC bootloader code on it, so it actually works like the universal floppy emulator, if you guys are familiar with that. It's kind of a complicated process to update it, but it's actually updated and ready to go. It actually has a little 4 gig USB key in there as well, which has preloaded about 20 disks on it. Only 5 of them have anything on them. The first disk is actually the version 2.49 operating system for the Ensoniq EPS, and the next 4 disks, I believe, are just a few samples and the test demo disks that I found on the internet. I went ahead and converted those over using the HxC software to convert it over to HFE files and got it up and running. So everything's finally working. Mounted it in here, and there's a tiny gap above there, but otherwise it seems to fit and work pretty well. So right now it's actually it's a little different than the regular HxC emulator. There's only 2 buttons, and you have to name the files a specific way for it to see them. But once you do that, you just ordinarily keep adding files, and you can add up to 999 disks, I believe, is the max that you can do. With a 4 gig card here, I think you could probably max it out more than likely, because I think I only put 20 on there, but you can just basically go in there and take one of the blanks, like any 1.6 or greater, and just copy it to a new file, and you've got another blank disk that you can save on. So let me show you guys how it works. I'm going to turn it on. As you can see, HxC pops up and it comes to drive 0. The green light comes on, which means it's loading. The guy's coming up, and there it's loading system. So it's actually loading the operating system right now off of this. You'll see when the light went off, it means it's finished loading. Keyboard's tuned. Now it says no instruments, which is where it should be. So what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and switch over. I believe it's disk 4. You just hit up until you get to 4. And I'm going to hit load. And yep, this is the demo disk. And hit enter. Now once in a while you'll see that where it says disk drive not ready. I've had this happen a few times. I think it's a timing issue, but if you hit load again and hit enter. Go ahead. Loading's on. So now it's actually loading up the demo. Takes it a minute here. And you can see the lights actually on the floppy. And by the way, this keyboard is actually in really, really good shape. The only thing I can really see that's wrong with it all, it's probably hard to see in the video, is that there are some mild scratches on the keys, but all the buttons work great. Everything looks good. It's loading up all the instruments just fine. And I've got a little KRK Rocket 5 plugged into it. That's just a test speaker of mine, but it's not for sale with this. I just have it plugged in so you can hear what it does here in a minute. But loading. I think it's almost done here. Okay, now the file's loaded, and you can see that the floppy light's off. Everything's loaded. So I'm going to go over, oops, I want shadow, hit play. And there it goes. Hear that 80s demo song. Alright, anyway, you get the idea that it works. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it off one time. Yeah, be sure to turn your speaker off when you turn it off. It makes some noise. You're going to want to make sure that this is back on disk 0, because that's the operating system disk. And then you'll see that it comes up. Loading system. So now it's loading off there. It'll shut off in a second. It's off. Now it's tuning, keyboard tuned, baby, I'm ready to load. Alright, so I'm going to go to, I can't remember what's on there, the disk 1, hit load. And now it sees the file. And like I said, sometimes the first time it says drive not ready, hit load again. And then just hit enter, pick a button. Now it's loading up sideboard. Again, you can see that the light's on. Still loading. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to go a heck of a lot faster than the floppy. I think the machine expects it to be slow, but there. So there you go. And you can go actually to another disk here. Let's just go to disk 3, and I'll hit load. And there's the grand piano. We'll hit enter. So I'll hit load, enter, pick instrument 2. Yeah, it seems to do that first time you switch the disc. I think if you wait a second or two, the disc will mount and be a little happier, but just be aware if it gives you that drive not ready error, just hit load again and hit enter and off it will go. That's the only time I've ever seen it do that. Some of these are longer than others. Piano seems to be a long sample, so it's taking a while to load here. Once it's done, file loaded, now I can select it. Turn the volume back up. This is like the best sample in the world, but anyway, you can take your own sample disc. All you'll need is a PC that actually has a real floppy drive, not a USB floppy drive, and you can go ahead and take the software that I've actually included on the USB key there. It's fairly simple. There's a driver you need to install, and there's also just a program called HxC floppy emulator. You can run that on the PC once the driver's installed and stick your original Ensoniq sample discs in. You can make an image of them and then save them back as, and just you basically go into the program and do an export. And when you do that, you can now go into this USB key, and on the root of it, just copy the file over and rename it to where it's the next file in line, or you can replace a file, and that'll let you go ahead and load it up. And you just, once you got it up, you select which disk it is, and I'll just show you once you get to disk 6 here. If I do load, it shows no instruments, and that's really just a blank disk and so on. I got it, I think, up to 20. Get up to the top here. So there's 20, do load, and again, it's no instruments. But if we go to like disk, once it looped there, and go to disk 2 and load. There's the synthesizer, so we'll hit enter. So we got the drive not ready again, so do load again, enter, pick instrument 3. It's loading. It's taking a minute. Light's still on. Let's get a long sample. Okay, there we go. So anyway, this guy also has a SCSI port as well as the 4x memory option, which gives, I think, the max upgrades that you could possibly do to this without the output expander. But with the USB, you probably won't even need to bother with the SCSI, because you can put pretty much as much as you want on here, and you can take your existing disks and convert them over to work pretty easily as well. So give you nice flexibility with it. And this is a good keyboard. It actually has good aftertouch on it. I really like the way it feels. It feels nice and weighted. It's a lot better than a lot of the MIDI controllers today. So for anything, you can use this as a master controller. It's really a nice keyboard for it. So anyway, I think that's about all I have to say about it. Take a look at it on eBay, and thanks for taking a look at my video. Take care.